One nation will stand dependency and body mutilation to appease the gender cult. Leave our kids alone. The Trusted Digital Identity Bill is a global surveillance and control mechanism that profit-hungry corporations and power-mad politicians drafted and crafted. One nation opposes this inhuman, dystopian future that the United Nations promotes as the Great Reset, and we condemn this Parliament for signing on to it. I called for Australia to reject the World Economic Forum's Great Reset and instead mount a great resist. Just like the koalas being euthanized to make way for wind turbines, or damaged solar panels leaking toxic heavy metals into waterways, the United Nations net zero plan again involves killing the environment to save it. I've been speaking about the fear, the oppression and the inhuman cruelty of our COVID response since July 2020. I promised to hound down those responsible, and I will continue relentlessly to keep that promise. You're about to be live with me, Senator Malcolm Roberts. Hi. Digital ID as an issue is alive. I thought it died yesterday and we lost, but we actually are still in the fight. It's not dead, it's very much alive. So, you know, they say a week is a long time in politics. Well, 24 hours is a long time in politics. Yesterday I was devastated because I was really sad for our country. I thought we were buggered. I thought it was done. And I was very, very angry. I was seething. I rarely get angry, but man, I was seething yesterday. Today, I'm happy. I'm really happy because my staff reminded me of a couple of things and also showed me some figures. And I'm happy thanks to you. The people of Australia are starting to stand up. We've been asleep as a people. Now we're starting to stand up. And we're telling the damn members of Parliament who's in charge. They're terrified of you. And I'll give you some evidence on that. The key to democracy is the citizens who are alive. Because at the top of our constitution, at the top of our democracy, stands the people as a collective, the people. We elect the MPs who represent us in Parliament, but they haven't been representing us because the people as a whole have not been doing our job. We have not been holding them accountable. We've just been voting Labor or Liberal, Labor or Liberal. They take it for granted. They've become a uni-party, same policies, and they push the WEF, World Economic Forum and UN policies. And that's where the digital identity was taking us, further down that World Economic Forum UN path. Yesterday, there are signs that the people of Australia are stirring. One Nation did our bit for years in leading the charge against digital ID. I was the first to really speak out against it. Pauline joined me. We have been belting them about the digital ID and explaining its horrific consequences for the last 2 or 3 years. And lately, the people have stirred. And yesterday, you bloody well roared. I'll explain why. Well done very much to thousands of people who called members of Parliament after the brief video I made. One of my staff said, let's make a video. And so the day before, Tuesday? So we made a video saying to people, call your members of Parliament and tell them they work for you and to vote against the digital ID bill. We recommended they call all the senators right across the country. And you did. The Greens stopped answering their phones. The Labor Party some of the MPs stopped answering their phones. David Pocock posted something on X, Twitter. I'll see if I can find it while I'm running around. No, I can't find it. David Pocock basically said that he was against the guillotine, the silencing of debate, the ending of debate. It didn't even start. There's no bloody debate at all. What he didn't tell you was nowhere does he say that he actually voted for the digital ID. They are scared of people knowing that they voted for the digital ID yesterday in the Senate. David Pocock bragged that he didn't vote against cutting debate, but he was silent on saying that nowhere does he say that he voted for it. He is scared of what the people. Katie Gallagher, the finance minister and the government's manager of business in the Senate, was hammered on social media. Comments scathing. 300,000 views she had for her post celebrating the digital identity's passage through the Senate. Thousands of comments, and most of them completely and strongly against her and against the Labor Party. And out of 300,000 views, they got a few hundred likes. They know who's in charge of this country again. and they are terrified of you. It was supposed to go straight from the Senate back to the House of Representatives, which was going to be sitting late in the night last night, but they didn't. The House of Representatives adjourned at the end of Wednesday without a vote on the digital ID, without the digital ID bill actually entering the House of Representatives as planned. They don't want it passed as it stands now. Labor has been shaken. They've really been shaken. And during the vote, some of my staff told me today, during the vote, senior members of the Labor Party were often in scrums with various other people, some of the crossbench. They were very worried. It did not look good for them, not in terms of the numbers, but in terms of the appearance of what Labor was doing. Labor, Pocock, Jackie Lambie, Tammy Tyrrell, David Vann, and the Greens, of course, all colluded to shut down debate. We were going to vote on the most important bill for many, many years that will devastate our country if it goes through the House of Representatives in the future. It'll devastate the country. And they were terrified. They were terrified of the appearance. Cutting off debate. Not one word of debate. Not one word of debate on the various amendments. All the amendments done just by reading them. All voted on. The most momentous bill for a long, long time. And here they were, shutting down your representatives in Parliament. And they know it, and they can feel it. And the Liberals, they introduced this digital identity bill. The Liberal Nationals introduced the digital identity bill under Scott Morrison's government. And I sat in the final division, the vote tally for the final vote on the bill. And I looked at Pauline and looked at Ralph Babet, and I thought we'd be the terrible trio again, the only ones voting against this heinous bill. And I said to Pauline, look at this. The Liberal Nationals are with us. They're voting against the bill. They introduced the damn bill, but they're so terrified of what the people are thinking of the bill that they actually voted against the bill that they introduced in the first place. That's what you've done. And I must also take my hat off to some key Liberals who've been working really hard to turn that party around. Alex Antic, Matt Canavan's done some really good work on the digital identity bill. Jared Rennick, others who are speaking up. I better not praise them too much because they might get excommunicated, but by their own MPs. But the Liberals know that the people are upset, and some of the Liberals are very, very upset. So I said to Pauline, look at this. They know that we will embarrass them if they vote for it. You are the key. The people. You, the people, are the key. We, the people, are the key. And I just want to encourage people to continue. We'll talk more about it in a little while. I just want you to continue the protest. You have been highly effective, believe me. And most of the comments are respectful. They're very firm. They're very determined. They're very aggressive. But most of them are respectful. They just talk facts. So continue that way. Respectful, firm, and determined. Make no mistake, this is about keeping our country alive, restoring our country for humans to abound and thrive. You know, 120 years ago, Australia was number one on per capita income, per person income. Highest gross domestic product per person in the world. The United Nations a few decades ago acknowledged that we are the richest country for resources. And yet we've slumped in per capita income, down around about 20 and heading down. So I just want to mention a few key points on digital identity bill and digital identity itself. Liberals introduced it. As I said, Scott Morrison and David Littleproud, as leaders of the two parties, the Liberal Nationals, introduced it when Morrison was Prime Minister. Labor, this week, rammed it through yesterday without debate. Not a single word of debate. Not your representatives that you were elected didn't even have an opportunity, did not even have an opportunity to present your views. Not one word of debate. Just all the bills just guillotined, truncated, and rammed through. Labor, Greens, Teals, Senator Pocock is a Teal. Jackie Lambie Network, David Van, all colluded to pass it through without a single word of debate. That's where these people are when it comes to democracy. They're anti-democracy. They're all for control. They're also lacking in respect for the people. Why would you ram it through without debate? Is it because it puts us on the speed slide to big government, a bit like Communist China? Many of the provisions in the Digital Identity Bill are in operation in Communist China. Do they want their big business mates to get data on the people of Australia? Because that's what's going to happen. Jeff Bezos from Amazon in control, you think? BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, First State, many other of the similar kind of companies, funds, are in charge of our country. They own huge shares in the 4 banks. They own the controlling interest in the 4 banks, what are effectively controlling interests in the big banks. We don't have 4 banks. We have 1 bank with 4 logos. Similar products, similar systems, similar services, similar strategies. And their controlling interest is in BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, First State. Coles, Woolies, same. So the profits from Australian operations get shipped overseas. Tell me that's not good. Tell me that's good for the country. Like hell it is. Qantas, same. Many of Australia's largest companies are the same. Controlling interest, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, First State. The parasitic, predatory global funds. They already own our country and our government. Yesterday, Pauline and I and others tried to remove the Digital Identity Bill from the cutoff. A guillotine means the debate is cut short without everyone having their say, or all those who want to have a say, and just put to the vote. Pauline and I and a few other senators were working very hard so that senators could speak for the people, on the people's behalf. We needed debate so that people could see us scrutinising the Digital ID Bill on their behalf. And nowhere could the people see that because Labor cut it off. Pocock cut it off. Pocock cut it off. Greens cut it off. Jackie Lambie, I don't think she actually cut off the debate, but she voted for the damn thing. Yet again, we saw that Labor, Green, Teal, Senator David Pocock, coalition in the government take charge. Coalition in the Senate take charge. They're protecting each other repeatedly. The Labor Party, the Greens, and Teal Senator David Pocock, sometimes with Jackie Lambie, they repeatedly protect each other because they need each other to maintain that control. They're not interested in democracy. I've already mentioned that Littleproud and Morrison introduced it. How many Liberal Nationals do you think knew that what was in that bill? I'd say very, very few prior to yesterday. Yet they blindly support it. Where's the conviction in these people? When it's time to stand up, they listen to their party power brokers. Labor Party people just follow like lemmings. Liberal Party, you have a few people who stand up. People like Rennick, Antic, they stand up. Like George Christensen, Craig Kelly used to stand up. How many Libs knew the details in that bill? Why would you prevent questions? It's an abuse of power. It's a bypassing of the people, bypassing of democracy. It's a removal of democracy. That's what's going on. I'm just reading some notes here. They're actually preventing the people's representatives in the Senate from debating, actually preventing that. They're hiding from public scrutiny. Why? You know, hiding things, telling lies, suppressing the truth are all forms of control. And always beneath control there is fear. Of what are they afraid? What is David Pocock afraid of? Jackie Lambie afraid of? The Greens, Labor Party. The people are seeing reality emerging during this session yesterday because there was no debate on one of the most important bills ever seen in that parliament. That's the way your country, our country, has been run for decades. Key things rammed through in silence. We had so many amendments moved by various parties, including One Nation and the Liberals. Not one was debated. Not one had an opportunity to ask a question on. So much for committee stage scrutiny. All the amendments were either passed, were voted on, either passed or failed, without a single word of debate or question. Not one. That's not democracy. So what we've done in the Senate yesterday was made a decision on this digital identity bill based on a committee report. And I know for a fact that the committee report ignored vital evidence, overwhelming evidence of how bad this bill is. Just flat ignored it. So why don't we just dissolve the Senate and let a few committee chairs just take over instead? Take over a dictatorship. So why am I so angry about this? Apart from the breach of democracy, the failure of democracy, the bypassing of democracy, the hijacking of the government, here are some of the things about the Digital Identity Bill. Got a page of notes here. It'll lead to a data freefall. It allows the government to aggregate data, your data, and sell it to foreign companies, where they can keep your data without our privacy guarantees. There is no guarantee of privacy in this bill. One of the committee recommendations was to ensure that privacy was dealt with. Even the Greens said that in the committee. And even the Greens maintained they were opposed to it until the privacy bill, until privacy enhancements made. Yet the Greens voted for it yesterday. Why? Ask your Greens. Why? So it allows government to harvest data, your travel data, your financial data, every transaction, every comment on social media, every piece of your health data. And by the way, they can sell all that to corporations, and then corporations can exchange it between themselves for a fee. And if you want access to your health data, you bloody will pay for it. You will pay to access your own health data that you put in there. So what this does, it breaks down the silos between departments, health department, finance department, and various agencies. And they can transfer data between those silos. And so government can aggregate the data and then sell it, sell your data. Harvesting your biometric data, your face, your fingerprints, and they can give police access to it. They can give police access to it. Now, David Pocock actually came up with a sensible amendment, and that was to not give law enforcement agencies access to biometric data unless they're chasing someone for a crime with more than 2 years jail term. So we voted for that, to allow that, because at least it's a somewhat minor improvement to it. But that didn't get up. It did not get up. So the police will get your data if they want it anytime. As I mentioned, the storage can be overseas. Your privacy compromised. No regulations to guarantee your privacy. Data is private. Insurance premiums. So if you've got a problem on your health that the health records have identified, you pay more for insurance premiums if insurance companies buy the data and say you're a bigger risk for some reason. And that's not what insurance is meant to do. It's not meant to be harvesting information to charge you more. It's meant to be averaging out the risks across the whole population. That's what it's for. We've already got the NPP, the new payments platform, established by the Reserve Bank of Australia. I think it's been flogged off to a private company. Every single electronic financial transaction in this country goes through that new payments platform, that node. Everything goes through there. They can harvest everything. Now, this is not standing on its own. Labor passed through the Identity Verification Services Bill a few months ago. That allows them to capture facial scans without direct active consent. They say something about consent in the bill, sure. But every time you sign an update in terms, every time you agree to terms and conditions being changed, who reads the damn thing? They're in fine print and they're many pages long. No one reads them. But somewhere buried in there will be your positive consent to collecting your facial scans, your biometric data, and all the other data. You will have given consent even though you won't have known it. What we wanted to do, and we mentioned this in our dissenting report to the committee beforehand, we want active consent. Every time they collect any data from you, especially your face, a photo of your face or a video of your face, you must give explicit consent. In other words, you go to check out at Coles, at the self-managed self-managed checkout. They have to ask you, can they capture your face? And if you say no, they can't take it. Active consent, not positive consent, active consent. When they collect all this data, it'll be easier for them to move you off cash and get onto digital currency, which then gives them complete control over us. And then another thing that's coming, the misinformation, disinformation, censorship bill. When we kicked up such a fuss about it, Pauline and I, and One Nation ran a conference on it in Brisbane a few months ago, that censorship bill, that's what it is, make no mistake, it's a censorship bill. Misinformation, disinformation. The government is exempted and the media is exempted. They can tell lies and get away with it. It's a censorship bill. And guess who introduced that one? Even though it was introduced to this parliament by the Labor Party, it was introduced first by the Liberal National Government under Morrison and Littleproud. And then once you've got control of what people say, you've got no effective freedom. No speaking out, no challenging. You've got a digital currency, you've got access to data, and they can say, we've noticed you've made some comments against our policy. We think they're disinformation. So we are going to slash your access to social media. We're going to slash your access to buying certain goods until you wake up to yourself. That's called social credit system. They give you a score for things that are positive for the government, things that are negative for the government, they take off your score. That's being done in some parts of the world. It's being done with 15-minute cities in Britain right now, and it has been for months. Social credit system is how they will capture us and take us back if we don't stand up. And yesterday, thousands of people around Australia rose up and spoke out and told the Liberal, Labor, Nationals, Greens, Pocock, Lambie to stop this digital identity bill. So once they have a social credit system in place, as I said, they've got it in place in other countries and around some Western civilized countries that are supposedly democracies, they're in place. China's Communist Party has it in place. Then you have essentially feudalism, communism. That's where they want to get to. We've been saying this for years. And you don't have to trust me and Pauline. You don't have to trust us. All you have to do is go and listen to some of the leaders of the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, particularly the United Nations. They have said this themselves. Unelected socialist global governance. That's what they want. Where did it start in this country? Well, it started under the Labor government of Prime Minister Gough Whitlam. That's where globalism really got... Well, it actually started with a notable Australian Everett who was involved in forming the United Nations on behalf, ultimately, on behalf of major corporations around the world. That's what they wanted. That led to various agreements, and the most significant was the destruction of our manufacturing sector and make us dependent on other countries. And that was Labor Prime Minister Gough Whitlam. In 1975, his government signed the UNIDO Agreement, the Lima Declaration of 1975. His archenemy became Prime Minister at the end of 75, and guess what he did? Malcolm Fraser was a Liberal Nationals, archenemy of Gough Whitlam. So you'd think he'd undo it, wouldn't you? He ratified it. Labor signed it, Liberals ratified it. And then the man who did the most damage of all led the government, the Howard government, Liberal National Party government that turbocharged globalism in this country. I haven't got time to go through all the things, but there's a list here that I've made up over the years. I'm stunned at how much damage the Howard government, Liberal National Party government, did to this country. Every major UN, World Economic Forum, climate and energy policy, all based on lies, has been introduced by the Liberal Nationals and turbocharged when Labor comes in. Oh, and then I forgot to say, the Labor Party is saying it's all voluntary, you don't have to subscribe to the digital identity. Just like the COVID injections, Senator Gallagher? What they don't tell you is that in the bill, the minister can authorise compulsion. All he has to do is make it a regulation. That's it. We can't even see the regulations at the moment. So I just want to say it again. Those who voted for the digital ID that passed the Senate yesterday, Labor Party, to a man, to a woman, Greens, to a man, to a woman, Lydia Thorpe, the Teal Senator David Pocock, Jackie Lambie, Tammy Tyrrell, and David Van from Victoria. And then think about it. The most significant bill for many, many years that could devastate individual Australians in the future and kill our country. What do we see in the media? I don't think there are any reports. Barely a mention. Those who voted against it, it's easy. Senator Pauline Hanson, Malcolm Roberts, Senator Ralph Babet, Liberals, Nationals. Even though the Liberals and the Nationals brought it into the Parliament under Morrison, you kicked up such a fuss that they knew that they were in for a fight. And we have been so vocal in the last 3 years on this that the Liberals are starting to wake up. They're still run by globalists, but some of the decent Aussies, like the Antics, the Rennicks, are having their say. So what we moved yesterday was an attempt to remove the digital ID bill from the guillotine. The guillotine, and it's sometimes necessary guillotine, but not yesterday. The guillotine is where they truncate debate and just put it to the vote. Yesterday they had 10 bills, 10 pieces of legislation that they wanted to pass through a guillotine, all kept until the last couple of hours of Wednesday before Easter with the Senate rising. That is an abuse of the guillotine. The guillotine is sometimes necessary when, with the will of the Senate, the vast majority of senators say we've got to get on with this, we've had enough talk on it, let's get on with it. So, guillotine, I'm not saying they shouldn't be done, but they should be done rarely, not abused. Now, I want you, please, to continue the magnificent work you've done. I'm just checking the time here. The magnificent work you've done in putting a rocket under the Labor Party's backside, the Greens, Pocock, Jackie Lambie. Contact your MPs, tell them how to vote in the House of Representatives. So I'm going to try a piece of technology here. I'm going to get a video up, and then I'd like you to watch it. I should be able to comment as we go through it. Okay, so in Google, enter your MP's name, or your electorate rather. Search for the House of Representatives. Go to Parliament of Australia, members, click on members. Put in your postcode. There's one for example. And by example, it brings up Milton Dick. Then scroll down and you'll get his telephone number. Call their officers. Call the men and women who are supposed to be representing you. Tell them how to vote. Remind them you pay their wages. Remind them it is a privilege to represent you in the House of Representatives. Tell them they work for you. Remind them that. Most of them have forgotten completely. Tell them how you want them to vote. They have been elected by the members of that electorate to represent the people of that electorate. You're one of them. Tell them. That's what they're there for. Yesterday, guess how many votes we were short of defeating that digital identity bill? 1 vote. Imagine how we could do with one more One Nation senator in the Parliament. Sorry, that was in guillotining, we were 1 short. In the guillotining, we were 1 short. We could have ended the guillotine and had a decent debate and aired all the dirty laundry from Labor, Pocock, Greens' support of this bill. expose the bill in its entirety. We failed in the guillotine by one vote. Imagine how much more we could do with one nation senator. That'll be one vote off the Labor Greens coalition and another vote onto the Freedom side. The Liberals gave bad instructions to their voters in Western Australia on preference cards in the last election, how to vote preferences, and as a result, instead of a one nation senator being elected, we just missed out. The Labor Party was got another member. If that Labor Party senator had gone to One Nation, we'd be 2 votes ahead. Labor would have one less, One Nation would have another one. So keep the pressure on members of Parliament over this issue. Keep the pressure on the members of Parliament at election time. Oh, and by the way, it's more than just shaking up and waking up the members of Parliament. We need to waken Australia. So share our material, please, with friends, family, work, social friends, church groups. Democracy, to succeed, to be alive, needs active citizens. That's the number one component for a democracy. Active citizens. To avoid returning to feudalism, communism, be active citizens. At elections, make sure you vote. Think about the candidates. Vote for people who've got strength of character, who show solid values, and who have decent policies. And between elections, it's not just turn up for the election and then walk away. Between the elections, take an interest. Because if you don't take an interest in politics, politics will take an interest in you, especially your wallet and the way you live, your lifestyle. That's what's at threat in this country. So between elections, hold your MPs accountable. Hold me accountable. If I don't do what you want, tell me. And thirdly, spread the word. Educate people, your friends, your families, colleagues. We need to restore members of Parliament's respect for we the people. We are in charge. They have lost complete respect for the people. They treat the people of this country as a joke. Yesterday, they silenced us, the representatives of the people, couldn't even debate the most crucial bill in many, many years. They're giving you the big middle finger. The only way to get respect for the people is for the people to earn that respect and hold the MPs accountable. That's what democracy depends upon. That's the core of a democracy. Mention a couple of other things just briefly. I had a motion to have an inquiry into the ending of the 3G network amongst the telecommunications companies, the phone companies, and it got up. So I think it was, apart from the Labor Party, no, the Labor Party even voted for it, I think. I can't recall, but it was a very big majority. So the 3G inquiry, what they want to do is they want to end the 3G network, and yet so many people depend upon 3G. Some of the 4G phones, people don't know this, but it was revealed during Optus outage recently that some of the 4G phones do not work on 000. There's so much agricultural equipment that relies upon 3G networks for control, some surveying equipment. We're talking about millions of dollars worth of equipment here. So we're still running on 3G in this country. We can't just shut it down. The government did its usual trick, shutting down without adequate consultation. So that is now going to have an inquiry. So we'll have your say if you want. If you're dependent on 3G, have your say. That'll start soon. We also have been chasing the Department of Health for all you vets out there, for veterans, for all you Defence Force personnel, and thank you for a wonderful job you're doing. Thank you so much for your commitment. We have been holding the top brass of the Defence Forces accountable for their lack of support of the soldiers who were tainted by the Brereton Report. After that Brereton Report came out, not one person has been jailed for an offence. Only one person has been prosecuted. One person prosecuted and no one jailed. And yet the senior leaders, the top brass of the Defence Forces, threw that SAS regiment under the bus. They have won medals, given themselves medals for commanding those forces. So they are every bit as responsible. But they didn't strip the medals from them. They only, from themselves, only stripped the medals, tried to strip the medals from the soldiers, from the grunts on the ground. So we are chasing that. There are so many other things that the senior people in the Defence Department and the Defence Forces, we're holding them accountable for. And I also want to mention Senator Ralph Berbere. He moved a motion some weeks ago, just a very mild statement saying the Senate notes the large number of excess deaths. I think that was the wording he used. And that got up because the Liberals voted for it. All the pressure we've been putting up, just a handful of us in the Senate, is starting to bear fruit. And so the Senate agreed to it. We also got my motion for developing a draft terms of reference for a future possible Royal Commission up. And that's doing a wonderful job, wonderful witnesses. So there's been a change. People are starting to realise we were told a lot of lies about COVID. A lot of people have died from the COVID injections. We're talking about thousands of people. All-cause mortality is hugely above the average, hugely. 26,000 deaths above the normal level in 2022. We've seen massive deaths when there was no COVID. Queensland and WA got injections before COVID. So we know the deaths were not due to COVID. They were due to the injections. And there's an easy explanation, as I've explained, from experts as to why we know they're from the injections. And it's multiple layers of evidence, all point to the injections. Well, Ralph, when he got the Senate to note that we're troubled about the huge number of all-cause mortality deaths, we realised, and my committee got up too, we realised now's the opportunity to have an inquiry into the all-cause mortality data. It got up. It got up. So now we're going to have an inquiry into the very high number of deaths from all causes in the last few years. So it'll come undone. We'll get them. I'm going to turn over to questions, but before I do, I'm going to wish you all a very happy Easter and safe Easter if you're travelling. Remember Christ, the reason for Easter. It's a time of rebirth, a time of celebration, a time of celebrating Christ, and a time of celebrating Christianity. And the message of Christianity, which is truth, forgiveness, and true love, and grace, all of these exemplified by Christ. And God is mentioned in the first sentence of our wonderful constitution, our country's constitution. Remember that. We're a Christian country. We tolerate people who aren't Christians, but we are a Christian country, and that's why we need to get, and Christ showed us. Christianity was the first religion to extol the virtues of truth, forgiveness, love, and grace. Truth, basis of the scientific principle, scientific method, basis of the development of the middle class and freedoms. But over Easter, it's a time to remember Christ, the man who started it all. So I'll open up for questions. Cat got your tongue. How can we turn this digital? I think you mean step up. I think you mean how can we turn this digital identity around and stop it? House of Representatives. Labor has shown that they are scared. They were going to vote in the House of Representatives last night. They held the House back for that very reason. Once the Senate passed it, because it was introduced in the Senate, because Senator Gallagher is the finance minister and she wanted to introduce it. So it was going to go from passage in the Senate and into the House of Representatives. they expected it to just be easy to get through the Senate. Well, despite the fact that they stopped all debate, it wasn't easy. And you guys, the people of Australia, who called senators, showed the Labor Party just how strong the people of Australia are on this issue. Labor was highly embarrassed. So were the Greens. So was David Pocock. David Pocock now trying to hide the fact that he voted for the digital ID bill, despite acknowledging huge reservations for it. So now it goes to the House of Representatives. It was supposed to go through last night, be done and dusted, all done. Get on with it. No, they didn't put it to the vote. Why? Because they're terrified. So we imagine that the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the next session around about the 7th of May is going to be devoted to the budget. And they won't want to pollute their budget tricks with the disgrace of digital identity. So that means it won't come up until probably late May, early June. And if you keep the pressure up, they won't do it. That's how we turn it around. Keep going with what you did yesterday. G'day, Senator, says Yorgos. Is it worth running as a local member for FON? Yes, it is. It is very much so. We've had people in some elections get to be one of the two-party preferred candidates. We've got members of Parliament in every mainland electorate. That's federal electorate, Pauline and I in the Senate, Queensland State, New South Wales State, Victoria State, South Australia State, Western Australia State. They're doing a marvellous job. And each election we've increased our vote. So it is well worth running as a local member for One Nation, definitely. Think about it. Apply to our head office. Fish says, what is the best way to apply pressure to our local representatives? Call them. First of all, go to their office and say you want a meeting with your representative. You want a meeting with your representative. Here we go. Okay. Identify where he or she is. Google it. Members. Put in your postcode. Find the MP, click on the MP, go down and get the number. There you have the number. You'll also have the address of their electorate office. And you'll have their email. Emails are almost useless. This is the hierarchy I use. I recommend, and I've done it myself. Visit their office, knock on their door and say you want a meeting. It shows real commitment from you, a real strength from you that you're turning up in person. Demand a meeting. Be polite, but be firm. And they'll give you excuses as to why the member can't meet with you. Don't put up with it. Do it again a second time. Leave your name, give your contact details, and you want a meeting. The second best way is to call them and demand a conversation. Just request it, all very respectfully. And then the third one is write a letter, a paper-based letter, signed. It doesn't have to be typed and neat. It just has to be neatly written or typed, signed with a handwritten signature, put in the post and sent. And if you really have something that you want evidence they've received it, put it registered post. It'll cost a few dollars, but that's what I used to do. I've written thousands of these letters in paper. And some people have told me how much they appreciated my letters, and some people told me how much they didn't appreciate my letters. But turning up is the best way, Fish. Yeah, the collapse of Armaguard. Who would have thought it, eh? Armaguard got permission to merge or take over another company, the two big competitors, supposedly, in the cash transit industry, and the authorities, the ACCC, approved the merger on the basis that they stick around and provide that service. Well, 4 months after it was approved, they're saying they're going to go belly up. So much for that. Now, we've been chasing the banks. I was at a banking inquiry last Monday and asked the the witnesses, held them accountable over it. Now, the way I look at it, banks, when they're bailed in or bailed out, they're taking advantage of their social license. So what the banks want in this country is they want capitalism when they're making profits, and they bank the profits, exorbitant profits, from a near monopoly, an oligopoly. And when times are tough, often because of their own mistakes, they want us to bail them out. So the banks have a social license. They must provide a service, and that includes, in my opinion, providing legal tender, which is cash. So if Armaguard falls over, and who knows if it will or not, it's up to the banks to make sure they can still provide legal tender. The banks, we've held in the Senate, we've held an inquiry into closure of local branches around Australia, and they've been closing frightening numbers. Thousands of ATMs ripped out, hundreds of branches, thousands of branches shut down. So what we're saying is, if you want to be a bank, you should be providing legal tender. And so if Armaguard collapses, let the banks sort out a company on how to move their cash around. Oh, and by the way, banks are also debanking competitors to Armaguard, preventing them from getting cash. That's serious. So we've raised those issues. We've also pointed out to the government that the banks have been the ones directly destroying the use of cash, decreasing the use of cash. Now we see people, and please join us. My wife and I now use cash wherever we can, because we want to make sure that cash is seen to be essential, because it is essential. So thank you very much for listening in, and keep up the pressure on the MPs. We're winning.